let's have a robust oversight and accountability mechanism. When people know that they can be held accountable for their actions, when people know that they have a reporting line and they are transparent in their reporting, you build trust, one, and people can depend on you. Then the time we spend fighting ourselves will not be necessary because things will speak for itself.
Yeah. You're welcome to the Economy and Politics Conversation. This is a special edition on Ottoabasi, Abasiekong. We'll be discussing the role and instruments of economic intelligence in Nigerian statecraft and sovereignty. The intersection of economics and security is no longer an academic construct. Capital flows, sovereign debt pricing, foreign exchange stability, trade policy, and energy infrastructure are now domains where intelligence architecture directly influences national outcomes. Recent governance signals, including allegations of surveillance of senior security officials, questions about the integrity of intelligence coordination, and election year amplification of policy uncertainty, underscore the urgency of a public conversation on how economic intelligence is structured, deployed, and governed within Nigerian statecraft. My guest joining me in the studio is Rear Admiral Leye Jaiyeola, retired, GSS PSC MNI, Chairman Owiwi Cubes Nigeria Limited, a technology-driven intelligence and security consulting firm that provides intelligence analysis, management, risk prevention and management, technical surveillance solutions, and security protection services. Rear Admiral Jaiyeola is a retired senior officer of the Nigerian Navy and one of Nigeria's foremost practitioners in the fields of intelligence, security studies, and strategic analysis. With over 35 years of distinguished service, his career has spanned operational command, intelligence coordination, peacekeeping, and strategic policy formation at the highest levels of Nigeria's military and national security architecture. It's great to have you, Rear Admiral.
Thank you.
I had to take our time to do this introduction because this is the first time having a very senior military official in this conversation. So I'm pleased to have you on the studio.
It's my pleasure being here too. Thank you for the invite.
Very
it's a privilege I don't take for granted.
Definitely. We look forward to a very interesting conversation. Well, let's take it from the conceptual foundation. Economic intelligence is a term a lot of Nigerians associate with espionage and, of course, classified security operations. But in plain language, what is economic intelligence? How does that relate to a Nigerian citizen? What's the nexus? What's the importance?
Well, thank you very much. You alluded to some key principles in your opening paragraphs, which I think is very important.
Yeah.
But there's no way we can speak of economic intelligence without talking about the concept of intelligence in itself. And we have some forefathers or people I call intelligent practitioners. And a name that readily comes to my mind is that of Sherman Kent. And Kent, in looking at intelligence, picked it from three perspectives. Intelligence as a process, intelligence as a product, or intelligence as an organization. Intelligence as a process presupposes that, okay, there's a direction, that's a time to analyze, your task, you analyze, because the informations come raw. You process these raw informations, you subject them to facts before you now disseminate. That in itself is a process. As a product, being the outcome of a processed information. And as an organization, like most of us know it now, to start from the Nigerian Palace, the DIA, the NIA, go to CIA, the KGB, those are structured organizations where functional things are done. But going beyond that, like you rightly said, to use the layman principle, I alluded to the fact that intelligence is a language of exactitude. In other words, you cannot afford to work on conjectures. Somebody comes and say, I hear say, it be like say, they talk say. That is not a language of intelligence. You deal with facts and figures. And so when we talk about economic intelligence, you are looking at an area that focuses on primarily systematic collection, analysis, and usage of economic finances, commercial information. You process them in such a way as to guide the decision makers. In this case, it could be the organization, it could be the stakeholders or shareholders, as the case may be, so that they can take informed decision. Because the thing with intelligence is that it has to be timely and it has to be actionable. Once those two words are not there, then it's not intelligence.
I like that last part, timely and actionable.
Yes.
Very important parts of intelligence. Now, we've seen Nigeria's security architecture. Every country in the world has a security architecture. But where does economic intelligence come into play?
When you look at the Nigerian space, economic intelligence, the way we have done it, it crosses across several boards. Ideally, we have, from my definition of intelligence as an organization, we have structures that their major job should be analysis, disaggregation of facts and figures as it relates to finances, market trends, to be able to come up with that. In that case, you talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria, you talk about the NFIU, and you have so many other bodies that are expected to deal with that. But because in this part of the world, we've worked in silos, so you have them in pockets moving on. But we've not really had time to come together and fuse them in such a way that you can have what you call a structured body that speaks when it comes to economic intelligence. But in various pockets and practices, I mean, before you can forecast, before you can predict, you need intelligence. And you need, in the raw man form, you need to process the available information. You need to have people outside. And when you look at, in the intelligence structure, they tell you what you call intelligence circle. You give a direction. When you give a direction, you task for collections. People go out to get the raw informations. Then this information, you now begin to process them, disaggregate them, analysis, then you now produce some things out. To a large extent, there are some organizations that do that in Nigeria. But do we work together as a body? I leave that open. Do we have a structured platform to present and say, okay, this is the forecast we're making as regards the intelligence, economic intelligence in Nigeria? That's a different matter. Then who do we give to? Because it's the end users of intelligence that matters. And who are the end users of intelligence here? You have the decision makers. A bank management need information about their contemporaries and competitors to take decisions. Even in your house, you need intelligence.
You all need intelligence.
And you make economic intelligence in taking decisions as to how you spend your money, what you buy, and all those. So as basic as they are, even at the very basic foundational state, they operate. But as the case of Nigeria, yes, it's tough. But definitely we have structures in place. We have structures in place.
Very interesting. And you know, there's something I used to read a lot of this information from the Central Intelligence Agency fact book, the CIA, and I used to wonder what the CIA has to do with giving such, but now I understand economic intelligence linking to security.
Yes, if you look at the people that came up with the soft power, when you talk about, I think the concept was brought into limelight by Hillary Clinton in her days as the Secretary of State.
United States,
You realize that the concept of soft power is not the physical war or what you call the kinetic operations whatsoever. It's to be able to use your resources properly using your other resources, your culture, your trade, your commerce, to be able to use it to your advantage in taking decisions. And in Nigeria, we have it. Nollywood is a good way to soft power diplomacy.
Yeah.
But since we're not talking about diplomacy, and we're looking at economic aspect of it, it's to be able to just take decisions as regards our trade, our commerce, stock markets, trend, what is happening, what makes you take a decision that will favor you in determining who do I operate it, who do I relate with, what stock do I buy, what share do I get involved in. Those are the basic elements, I think.
Very interesting. You've spent over 3 decades, of course, into the Nigerian military and the security establishment. But from your experience, have we had a coherent doctrine of intelligence that guides our operations, coordinated? You know, you talked about soft power and all that. Is it coordinated? And what are the gaps to address?
Well, we'll talk about the doctrine on intelligence. We have what you call the National Security Act.
Okay.
That focus majorly on Security Act. And I think this concept came about 1986 now, just to take us back through history, when we used to have the NSO then, National Security Organization. And this was after the Babangida coup.
That's the Babangida era.
After the Babangida era, it was decided that, look, you need to break down the security organization. So you have the DIA, you have the NIA, and you have the DSS, which we used to know as SSS before. They are now Department of State Services. But in between all these woven economic intelligence, but it's not out pronounced. So you see some of these organizations still work on intelligence, and sometimes in some of them you have the desk that covers logistics, the desk that covers culture, the desk that covers economy, decision making. But bringing them together as a body, it's another challenge. But I'm aware that within the custom, within the NFIU, within CBM, they will have a body that carries out this intelligence gathering to inform on economic decisions. But coming together to come up with a doctrine, I am not aware of. But I think it will be a good way to go as we progress.
Yeah, good way to go. Of course, intelligence is very important, like you said. But let's be specific. What are those concrete instruments of economic intelligence? You've laid some very good premise on this conversation. And what does that actually look like in practice, in trade negotiations, in foreign exchange management, in economic activities, especially monitoring illicit financial flows? We used to have a challenge as a country, but you are aware that, of course, recently Nigeria was removed from the FATF grey list with good signaling in terms of our seriousness with dealing with that.
Yeah, when people talk about instruments of economic intelligence, it's important that, they're like pillars upon which whatever you do will stand. And I tell people that it's important that our data collection method, in other words, when you look at market research, your competitive analysis, and you're looking at financial analysis, it's important that you must have a method of gathering information. I don't know why it is like that, but that's a challenge of us. You have so many sources of information coming in, and sometimes you have an overkill, information overkill. You have a lot of data coming in at your disposal, but because they are not well structured, it becomes difficult for you to know what and which to use at a particular point in time. So primarily, I will tell you that we need an effective data collection method which will help us in knowing which one goes to which one and how to put them together. And of course, there's a need for technical tools. In, information, especially in the ICT world now. I mean, when we started, the concentration was on human intelligence.
Yes.
But we tell people that, yes, human intelligence is important for local adaptation.
Yeah.
But technical intelligence, cyber, in satellite, in signaling, whatsoever, they have gone beyond that. You don't need to go far to get this information. I get there are softwares that if you put down, they will give you facts and figures.
Yes.
Social media, outsourcing, monitoring them, web scraping. There are things we need as tools. But it is one thing to have them. It is another thing to be able to disaggregate and pick the ones you want in making good use of it.
Yes.
Then, of course, the human resources there. In this part of the world, we've allowed the human resource part to suffer. We believe that technology can do everything for us. Let me give you an instance. While I was coming here, I just set your address, I put it on Google,
Yes.
and it was bringing me in. But when we get to the point of entering your estate, it didn't tell us that we'll make a U-turn and turn. At the point of that place, you just see the whole thing clogged. You cannot. But with local intelligence, which we call human intelligence, you're able to properly interpret. So that is part of the instrument I think is necessary. And of course, we talk about reputation and brand monitoring. Brand analytics, customer feedback analysis. These are things we don't take note of. And in economic intelligence, these are key instruments you need in effectively disaggregating. Then, of course, public information utilization. It's a feedback system. You are dealing with people. You need to have your ears on the outside, know what is happening. And when you get those information, you sit back, pick the one that meets your needs, and you can flow. And, people go into conferences, trade shows. Why do you do this? There are strong instruments of economic intelligence because I may think I'm a champion in my own field. But by the time you go outside, you realize that, you're working generations back.
Yeah.
And I need to know your need so that I can know the gap to fill.
Looking at data, which is very important, looking at effective deployment of human resource, looking at branding. That's one big area for our country. Brand management, reputation, it's very critical. You see the developed economies, what they do in their brand awareness, and this is very important at this time. Rear Admiral, Nigeria is going through its own complex phase. Economic reforms that are ongoing, from the foreign exchange to the subsidy removal and the petroleum downstream. Of course, the government says it is being used to address waste and all those discretion in this thing. But in your assessment, is economic intelligence playing its role in terms of these reforms? Are policy decisions being made in a way that it integrates intelligence, or is there a vacuum in this regard?
Well, I'm happy you said in my assessment.
Yes, in your assessment.
I have to be careful in saying this because the extent to which your potential is realized depends on the depth of analysis.
Yes.
It's important.
Very true, yeah.
And if your analysis is shallow, if your decision-making is shallow, it affects. There are individuals within the structure that we hold in high esteem, and we expect that if you listen to them, mark my word. And I tell people that the challenge of analysts and intelligence practitioners is that you may have the knowledge, but the buck does not stop on your table.
Yeah.
So when you tell your principal and he say, yes, I've listened to you, but I'm not doing it, what do? You can't do anything.
Yeah.
I think to the best of my knowledge, we've been able to, the CBN has been trying its worth. I we have a conservative structure within our CBN structure,
Yes.
and maybe we're coming from our colonial masters and that. And to a large extent, we have a delicate system in such a way that head you win, tail I lose. Whichever way it goes, you still win.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful in managing it. But I will tell you that we have structures on ground. Having the listening ears of the principal, well, could be another thing. But I can tell you that within the current system, a lot of product success is being recorded. And, it's easy to know if you are making success. I tell people it's like somebody that comes and says he's a good footballer or I'm a good driver. It's not theoretical.
Yeah.
Just give him the ball, let him play. If he can deliver, and to a large extent, before now we've operated in silos, and I will tell you that within the current space, there's an effort to bring together so that we can begin to move forward. But to what extent they're able to make their inroad becomes another thing.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that the structures are on ground. We have, if subject to time and we see the product, now we can begin to talk to what extent they are being positive about. Don't mind me, I'm not being
definitely.
I'm not being diplomatic. I'm just I'm just trying
we are discussing economic intelligence, so that's what we care. And you just mentioned Central Bank of Nigeria. Central Bank, of course, in their mandates, they manage the foreign exchange, they monitor capital flows, they also look at the financial surveillance. But to what extent is the central bank functioning as an economic intelligence critical actor? Because that's very important too. Is there effective coordination? We keep hearing this word of this need for coordination between monetary and policy and national economic intelligence.
Until we have a centralized, what I call a centralized economic intelligence agency, it will be difficult to really put something down. Central bank's role, like you rightly said, is clear. You monitor foreign exchange flow, you banking stability, microfinance indicator, enforce capital flow. When you put too much in your mouth at the same time, it becomes difficult for you to chew, right? So I believe there are organizations that should be structured. And when you have an economic intelligence agency, somebody will say, are we not duplicating? No. When you have such an agency that their job is to put these structures together, you're working with customs, you're working with the Federal Inland Revenue Services, you're working with the people in the petroleum actors in NNPC, you are relating with the security and internal agency group. By the time you sit down and you have these bodies come together, I used to think that the NFIU would have helped us in that regard. But you realize that because they are just a unit and informations are scattered all over the place, it becomes difficult. To the extent that the CBN is playing the role, because I'm not a banker, because I'm not an economist really, I'm just an intelligence expert, especially in the security aspect, it becomes difficult for me too. But from the product they are churning out, you will see that to a large extent, yes, perhaps they are trying, but it could be better packaged and managed if we have a structure that aggregates these thoughts.
Yes, the structure that aggregates these thoughts, very important. Let's look at regional, because we've talked about the heydays when Nigeria used to be the pivot in West Africa, Economic Community of West African States. We used to be involved in peacekeeping missions through the ECOMOG and all that. Now, we also have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is a very, very phenomenal development. Does Nigeria's economic intelligence capacity, does it match its continental ambitions? Because we're still called the giant of Africa, though there's still contentions to that in the reality. Are we entering high-stakes economic negotiations that puts us as a good pedestal? And I hope that this is done with our intelligence infrastructures integrated. What is your assessment?
Part of the thing that makes it difficult to give a direct answer to that without hiding from anything is the myth we build around intelligence. We operate a lot in secrecy so that what is happening, you know little or nothing. But from experience, I know I joined the military before the ECOMOG
Operations.
issue, and I was privileged to be involved in ECOMOG operations, not once, not twice.
Wow.
And I realized that Nigeria invested a lot. But what did we gain out of it? Practically zero. I used to tell people jokingly, if you go to Liberia or Sierra Leone now, with due respect, you will have a lot of Nigerian-born Liberian and a Nigerian-born Sierra Leonean.
Wow.
Those are our products by virtue of staying there for long. But did we able to harness putting our economic intelligence cap into play? I'll tell you, we did not do that. Because apart from the fact that we are a maritime state, we are a seaport state, when the colonial masters came into Nigeria, and they came with an intention. They had an end state. They developed the seaports, and they make sure that supporting the seaports are rail lines.
That connect
So
products.
that connects the product to. So they had purposes as to what we want to do. So they go there, cocoa, cotton,
Palm
and
oil.
they were palm oil,
Yes.
and they funnel them in such a way that when you get them straight to the seaport, they are out. We've spent a lot projecting ourselves as godfather and hegemony within the sub-region to talk about other. But did we take note of that aspect? Maybe, but in my own assessment, I'll say we didn't do well and we could do better. Is it too late? It is not late. Why? Because we're blessed. And we have a population that is, I think we have a very young population. We have mineral resources that are available at our disposals that could be exploited. Even within this area, we have language. Most of our people intermarried, they are interwoven. So
diversity.
we could take advantage of that. But it's been very difficult because we've not been able to take advantage of that. Policy making and forecasting in that aspect has been very poor. I mean, with every respect, we have Niger, Chad, Mali, and some other states,
Burkina Faso,
that you'll be shocked that we invested a lot in. What did we get out of it? Nothing. And there's a lot we can do in making sure that our products reach out to those places. I know some parts of Niger where most of the things they buy, they come to Nigeria to buy them. So if you properly do that, it can work. Our area of what I call investment attraction and target industrialization. Look, with every sense of modesty, that most of these countries you go to, they are one city states. They are one city states. I wouldn't want to mention names, but if you go to, I've had the privilege of going to practically all the West African countries. Most of them are one city states, and they depend on Nigeria. But have we taken advantage of that in selling our products? The only thing we have done successfully well is our Nollywood. If you go to Mali, somebody say you are a Nigerian, and they start comparing you with Ramsey Noir. They start comparing you with. We can do that in every other aspect. If we actually know what we are doing. Then our energy, diplomacy, and supply security. I know that some parts of the West African regions that they still get their power source from Nigeria. Those are areas, if we properly sit down, we can engage and be able to build upon. Yes, it's not as if nothing is happening, but we play the role of godfathers for long. And you know, when you have a godfathers, pardon my language here, say, Bobo nice. in this parlor, when you say the boy is nice,
yes.
when you just throw your money around and you're not getting anything back in return.
Yeah.
And I think that to a large extent, we can use our economic intelligence in Nigeria to play the role of real godfather in the sub-region, and I dare say in Africa at large, because we have the mineral resources, we have so many other things, but we have not been effectively doing that.
Yeah.
And that ties me back to the last you said. If you have a structured organization, an intelligence body that is able to put this together and present it, we'll now see it as a major power determinant in our drive for hegemony, not just within the sub-region, but I dare say in Africa.
Yeah.
Mr. Vice President said something which I hold in high esteem, that Nigeria stands as maybe a pathfinder, not just in West Africa, but in Africa. In terms of our human capital, you can imagine a country of over 230 million. There is no part of Africa you go to that you will not see in Nigeria.
Yes.
And if we sneeze, some West African states will catch cold. So we need to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let's look quickly globally in just 2 minutes.
Okay.
You've talked about Africa, setting ourselves in Africa.
Yeah.
You've seen developed economies, leading economies in the world. They use economic intelligence to advance their cause, pose sanctions, try to dominate the global trade architecture and every other part of it. How does Nigeria sit in, and how can we position ourselves? Because we've looked like a subject of economic intelligence influence from the foreign countries, but we need to assert ourselves too. We have to position ourselves properly. And experts are saying, how can we leverage economic intelligence effectively?
I think before now, we've actually been sleeping. But of recent, I think we're waking up to that reality. I watched a program yesterday when Madam Ngozi came into Nigeria to meet with Mr. President.
Okay, Dr. Ngozi
Okonjo, and she was talking about the inroad in the women, that the World Trade Organization got some approvals for some project focused at our women, and Nigeria was able to get a chunk of it.
Yes.
For me, when we begin to, if you don't sell yourself, nobody recognizes you. Like you said, nations play on that.
Yeah.
We have a lot at our resources, but I need to be able to know what I have first and know the usefulness of what I have before I dish it out. And I guess we're going gradually into that. To what extent are we? Maybe we're just starting small, but I'm a disciples of saying, despise not the days of little beginning, because gradually you meet up to it. But I think when you see the superpowers you alluded to, when they come with sanctions, they know if they squeeze you in this area, you will stop. If we decide to play with our petroleum products and we can build on it, the issue of smuggling, what has become of it since Dangote came in? Nobody talks about smuggling again. In 2012, I was part of a team from the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, and we conducted, Mr. President gave us a theme. And what was the theme focused on? He said, resource diversification for sustainable economic development in Nigeria. And we're able to discover that apart from petroleum, there were other 34 resources, mineral resources, untapped, that we're sitting on, that we could use in a large capacity to project ourselves. That is where economic intelligence comes in. If we're able to sit down, identify these products, and develop them, we'll become a bride to be toasted. And when you are a bride, you dictate who you approach. And I think rather than cap in hand begging, if we sit down and do a proper analysis of our products, a proper analysis of what you have in stock, and we're able to do that, you carve a niche for yourself, and we don't settle for anything. We call the bluff of so many states and still make our decision.
Recently just saw what one of the African presidents did to a super war para leader. And those are the kind of things we must assert to as ourselves.
Yes, we need to assert it. But you know, the thing is, you assert from a position of strength. A child that is 8 that wants to get pregnant is looking for trouble.
Yeah,
so there must be maturity. So if you don't know what you have, you can't make use of it. So what has been happening is outsiders know what we have, and they're coming to get it. So part of the advantage of having a structured economic intelligence outlook is to be able to sit down and say, what do we have? To what extent can we use this to develop ourselves, to project ourselves? Once you can do that, you know what I mean? Before now, nobody will ever believe that you could have a successful refinery. But Dangote has proven that look, it's possible.
Yeah.
And I tell you that there are several areas of development. We have artisanal miners in Nigeria causing troubles. Most of the security threats you have in the North Central and other areas,
Yes.
as a result of some of these practices of artisanal miners. So if we sit down and we see that as product and we properly aggregate our thoughts and we can project it, who told you that we cannot have companies and structures that will go into pact with some of these people and we dictate the terms for them? These are the things, and those are the things I see that economic intelligence will afford us and give us outlook, so that we'll be a major player. And when you are talking because of what you have, not because of what you are expecting to collect.
Yes. So a major takeaway from this conversation is that we need to have a structured national intelligence, economic intelligence body. So what could be those, in 1 minute, what could be those constraints to achieving this? How can we really achieve this in terms of framework?
Looking at constraints, I tried to identify some major constraints I think we could look at. And for me, part of the challenge we have as our major constraint is our data collection.
It's back to data, yeah.
It goes back to, you know, when you don't know what you have, that's a problem. Our capacity development is another important part. We need to develop people in that area that, you know, they can be able to reach out and say, look, this is what we do. So those major issues, some of them could go into policy, our domestic capacity to operate, our developing our local industry in such a way that they could stand on their own. Some people will tell you corruption. I say, look, every system is corrupt. It's only when a man is hungry. But if I'm full, if I'm full before coming here, there's no amount of food you put on the table that will attract me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I'm hungry,
Yeah.
and I've not seen food for anything that looks like food becomes attractive to me. So I think that if we develop the capacity of our people, one, and in terms of this, we have our data mapping, our making sure that we're able to reach out is effectively used, then it's easy. I put something as enhancing transparency in our governance.
Yeah.
Because part of the challenge we have is that as a deficit of trust. And a society where you have trust deficit, it becomes an issue. People don't even trust the government to do the right thing for them because people have been betrayed several things. So we need to walk back to gaining the trust of the people. Once we're able to do that and people know that, oh, when I come to this guy, I know he will deliver. He'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But as it were now, that remains a major challenge for us. And then we are fixated to a particular set of people. I believe that we should be thinking of diversifying our partnership. I mean, it's not west-west all the time. I believe that, look, if I have what I want to sell, when you go to the market, you don't determine your customer. You want to sell your product. So you give who has the money to pay for it. So I think that if we begin to get this right,
yes,
then it will be a good starting point for us. But importantly, transparency and trust. We need to build it. We need to be able to build it. And that in itself will manifest in good governance.
Yeah.
Once we can do that, then it makes it easy for us.
Speaking about transparency and trust, building trust with citizens, there's always this tension between intelligence capability and the civil liberties in terms of surveillance that can be used to protect national interests. So, but it can also be used for political control. So the concerns, like you mentioned, the issue of the Dangote coming in, ending that era of rent-seeking that's affected our country. And then the concerns about suppressing legitimate commercial activity. Looking again at the economic intelligence, how do we guard against, how do we achieve that balance as we try to build trust between governance and citizens?
Yeah, I think like you rightly said, the most important thing is achieving a balance. You know, sometimes we overclassify information. Sorry to digress a bit. We used to have, when I was in Calabar, we used to have a copper that served with us, very young.
Calabar is a very good naval,
yes, very young boy like this. So we nicknamed him Restricted. He just came and said, "Sir, why is it that every paper I carry is restricted? Why is it that it's restricted?" You know, in the security world, you have classification of information. And why do you do that? You say unauthorized disclosure of some of this information could be injurious, could cause exceptionally grave damage. So because of that, you classify. You know, the people believe that we're in an information age where information should flow. And even in intelligence palace, before now, intelligence used to be compartmentalized. When you talk about the need to know, the need to hear, need to. But now there is the need to share. You need to share information. And when you share information, it's a controlled sharing. I give you an information you need. Like I was saying the other time, if you give a man an information he doesn't need, two things will happen to him. It's either he kills himself or he puts himself into trouble because he starts saying things that is not important. So in this part of the world, we still need to be able to put some things on ground. Like I said, a situation of lack of accountability has led to a lot of mistrust, and people don't trust us enough. And then we have the insufficient data infrastructure. You know, when you have a situation where the data collection is inadequate, your data system is so fragmented, so those things are not put together, then you have limited analytical capacity because we are always focusing on equipment to do the needful, forgetting that no matter the analysis you get from a system, you must localize it to your environment. And where those things are not there, it's a problem. Then, of course, the institution fragmentation. We have a lot of fragmented bodies within our system. And like I've said, it's important that we need to be able to put this together and let people know that, yes, it's Idi Amin that said it, but it was re-echoed by the president of Uganda.
Idi Amin Dada.
He said there is freedom of speech. But what happens? Freedom after speech is what cannot be guaranteed. I realize that sometimes in our quest to know information, even information that is not meant for public are released to the public, and it becomes injurious. So I think the fundamental thing is for the state, in other words, the people in authority, to be able to let us build trust It's a partnership. When people trust you to be able to, if I give you 5 kobo to keep and I want to collect it and you are telling me story, and I give you 10 naira to keep, I want to collect it, you are telling me story. Next time I won't give you. So we need to be able to get to that point. Yeah. But if we're able to put some of these structures together and we build trust, the issue of civil liberties that, look, we must know. It will take time. If you are cooking a good soup, you must be patient. And the Yorubas will say, what does that mean? If you want to lick soup, no matter how hungry, and when you get inside the house, Madam is still cooking and you go to the pot and you start eating, you know you have a problem.
Yes, you have a problem.
So those are the issues.
Yeah,
and
a good way to give the analogy. Yeah. But Admiral Jaiyeola, you're seated with His Excellency the President and saying, I hear you very well in intelligence. What are the 3 recommendations you would give on strengthening our economic intelligence infrastructure? I know that one of them you've talked about having that standalone economic intelligence body, but let me not preempt you. What would be those 3 recommendations?
Well, I identified the need to establish clear legal framework. There must be clear legislation for economic intelligence. There's a need for privacy protection. You must let it be clearly, let people know the boundaries. Over time, ignorance, they said, is what? It's not an excuse. But I tell people sometimes ignorance could be a sin and could be a serious, it cause serious damage. People will tell you what you don't know does not kill. But that's an old adage. What you don't know can kill you. And in this climb, what we do is that we just hide in ignorance and we say, it's better I don't know. So the first thing is, it should be brought to the fore. Come out with clear legal frameworks as to, look, we need to have a structured, then of course there's a need for oversight and accountability mechanism. It's important that you have independent oversight bodies that can relate, regular audits of our systems.
Yes.
If you don't take stock, you don't know what you have. I tell people there are so many things we're doing afresh now that we have in the bank. Because like I said initially, there's a problem of transparency, and information overkill. If I stock my house with documents, it gets to a point that when I need some key things, I will not be able to know where to look for them. So it's important that we are able to get people to do some things right for us. And I said transparency and public engagement. I say I want to help you. And you say you don't want me to help you. Should we fight about it?
No. Should we not fight?
It doesn't have to cause fight. When those in position of authority don't see themselves as lords, and we answer it that we are servants to the people, but to what extent are we serving is a different thing. So I will say clearly that, look, transparency and public engagement, you can't overdo it. Open dialogue on intelligence practices. Don't operate in secrecy, because whatever you operate in, people will know with time. But you could control what you churn out. But don't operate in the dark. Don't, if I want to cause any uproar between people, get 4 or 5 people. That's what we call ash effect. Ash effect in intelligence. Get 4 or 5 people together and call 4 in a room and talk to them and let the 4 go and meet the other 6 people. You think the 6 people will trust those 4? They won't trust them again because you have sown a seed of discord. So let's be transparent to a large extent and encourage what I call whistleblower support mechanism. Let people be able to come up. And You know, we've operated in an era of impunity for long. That somebody, you hear billions being stolen, billions being stacked, and somebody tell you that for you to be smart now, just steal enough. Steal enough so that when you are held, you can give out and you still be. So when people know that it's not an era of impunity, you can be sanctioned for infractions and there are consequences to every actions, then people will begin to do the proper thing. Yeah. So for me, I'll just advise Mr. President, sir, let's just do these things. But in summing up, basically, I will tell him, sir, let us establish a centralized economic intelligence agency. Yeah. That's the first thing I will tell him. And I'll say, sir, let us ensure that our data collection and our analysis infrastructure are well established. Because customers, immigration has, police has, there's a lot of information out there. But, they are not well collated. Then the last I would say is, please, let's have a robust oversight and accountability mechanism. When people know that they can be held accountable for their actions, when people know that they have a reporting line and they are transparent in their reporting, you build trust, one, and people can depend on you. Then the time we spend fighting ourselves will not be necessary because things will speak for itself. Yeah.
This has been a very lengthy conversation and we're going to wind down, but very interesting insights from you. To local and global investors watching, what is that government signal, economic intelligence signal that you will be speaking to, looking at Nigeria's sovereign risk profile as we're in 2026 and heading to 2027, we're in the pre-election season?
Well, there's only one signal I'll tell them to look out for. For me, the effectiveness and transparency of our fiscal and monetary policy management. It's important. Just look out for it. And it's very clear. When the fiscal and monetary policy management is effective, when people know, there was a time in this country that people will tell you that there are policy somersaults. Yeah. That there's no consistency. If the man brings his money here today, how is he sure that tomorrow things will not have changed? And because of that, the man is afraid. I'll tell you that I retired 4 years ago. And when I newly retired, I said, okay, let's go into setting up companies. And, my little gratuity, I put it together. Let's put this. And somebody said, well, dollar was at 970 something. And I got one major job that I thought it was Eureka. By the time they paid me, dollar had gone up to 1,600 and something. I had to go back to them and beg, say, look, I'm not even doing again. Just take everything and assume that. So when there are no policy consistency, when people cannot, then it becomes a challenge. So that's why I said the fiscal monitoring policy management is very key. And this word, I cannot overemphasize it, transparency. When there are implications for my investment, I know that, everybody invests to gain. If I put 5 naira and at the end of the day, my 5 is becoming 2, I won't come back next time. But if I know that there's a flow, there could be pitfalls here and there. But I look at the potentials. Do they have the potential to grow? And to wrap it up beautifully well. In this regard, I'm not a politician. I'm completely apolitical. And I say that with every sense of humility.
That's a full disclosure. Because your colleagues retired, they're also into politics.
I'm completely apolitical. But I I want to give it to the current government in
Yeah.
terms of that outlook. At least you are building investors' confidence that, oh, if we come to Nigeria and if I invest in Nigeria, I know that I'll make something out. And as we begin to open up the space, become transparent, and people see that our management of economy is something that is visible. Some of these things are no rocket science. People
Yes.
begin to see that, oh, we can trust these people. At least they are telling us the truth. And once that is done, I tell you that with time, it will come full circle. So that's
Full circle. And so, Rear Admiral, you served at the highest level of Nigeria's military and you've seen a lot. What gives you that confidence that Nigeria will build a robust economic intelligence capacity that meets the 21st century demands, understanding the dynamics of technology today also?
Yeah, I tell you that one is our human capital potential.
Okay.
I still say it. When you have a population of almost 230 million, which we don't really know, and over 70% are below the age of 30, man, that's potential.
Yeah.
So for me, I believe that we have a young population, we have emerging talent. I mean, our cyber hubs everywhere. Go to Ikeja, go to Yaba. I mean, when you see guys, the way they are ready to go, and our technological advancement. I mean, people are, I had a problem with my phone, and somebody just told me, go to Ikeja. I just called the boy, say, I've been battling with the phone, I couldn't know. He just looked at it, said, Oga, no problem. You just give me 2 minutes. And he took it in. Within 2 minutes, he brought it. I said, what did you do? He said, Oga, that's one of my, you know, that kind of a thing. So it gives me confidence that we can. Then international collaboration.
Yeah.
And I think to a large extent, we are reaching out. And that's why I said initially, we shouldn't just stay focused on a particular sector. Let's diversify. I mean, when you are a beautiful bride, you know, men blow whistle at you. The ladies will tell you. So let's be a bride to be wooed. And I think we have the potentials to do in terms of our resources, in terms of what you have in the bank. So I am fully confident that yes, that could be, although I have some concerns, which you didn't ask me.
Okay.
And the concerns are the weak institutional framework, which I think we need to. I've emphasized on the fragmentation of agencies. I've emphasized on the issue of governance and corruption. Then inadequate data infrastructure. In intelligence is no clairvoyance. There's no magic in intelligence. Intelligence works on facts. And facts are derived from available data. So we need to be able to develop that. Then political and regulatory framework. When you have a space that is not governed, when everybody can do what he likes, it becomes what we call, in those days when you see signage, they say come one, come all. And when you say come one, come all, it means free for all. So we should not make it a free for all. Policy instability, regulatory barriers, there are issues we need to deal with. And once we can take care of that, I'm confident that the future is bright. I tell my children and my younger ones that the potential is here. Don't japa. And for those that have japped, I'm telling them to japada. You know, japa, you know what it means. Japada is come back. Because you have enough resources to make it worthwhile.
Very interesting conversation.
Thank you.
We need to address the political and regulatory barriers. We need to integrate our data points. Capturing point, very important. We need to establish the framework for a national economic intelligence body that coordinates all the activity. We need transparency in governance. And most importantly, we also need that policy consistency and that coordination between the fiscal and monetary policy framework. Very interesting conversation on the role and instruments of economic intelligence in Nigerian statecraft and sovereignty. It was nice having you. Rear Admiral Leye Jaiyeola, retired.
It's my pleasure.
GSS, PSC, MNI,
You know what?
chairman of Owiwi.
You know what I like?
Nigeria
When
Limited.
people put all those GSS, those ones don't bring money. Once you just say MNI,
MNI, yes, that MNI.
it's okay.
And that's one even interesting part. The National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies has churned out very great leaders, and that should also be part of integration into this whole economic intelligence, because those are real assets that have gone through those rigors of national
yes, and
policy.
I tell you, I'm happy that your chairman is one of us.
Yes.
And it's important. That's why we say the products of the institute, we call them the elite group.
The elite group.
The elite group. And because a lot has been put into us.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, if we can come out and just put policies together. And I tell people, NIPS was established over 48 years ago. And for every year, Mr. President gives a theme to work on.
Yeah.
So you have been writing on policies, papers issued for 48 years, 48 different policies.
Wow.
Federal road safety came from NIPS. And there's so many other institutions that came from.
Yes.
Even this police reform, NIPS have done the work on it.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is put those packages together.
Yeah.
And you are good to go.
And MNI should also be involved in the governance structure so that they carry the template of the state. They are guardians of the state policy.
Yeah.
Thank you once again, Admiral.
It's a
very
pleasure.
interesting conversation.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Yes.
Thank you.
To our viewers, I believe you enjoyed this special edition and extended conversation that looked at the role and instrument of economic intelligence in Nigerian statecraft and sovereignty. If you want to get further insights on this conversation, visit the ProShare website displayed on the screen and also our social media platforms to engage further. Till we come your way again, enrich yourself with the knowledge of socioeconomic developments around you, because it's the wise thing to do. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.